My alpha threw me away. His rival raised our son instead. Welcome, everyone. Before we begin today's emotional story, we have one small request. If you enjoy heartfelt BL stories filled with unforgettable characters, powerful emotions, and meaningful journeys, please subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new upload. It only takes a moment. It is completely free, and your support helps us continue creating more touching stories like this one. We sincerely appreciate every one of you. Before we begin, let us know in the comments where you are watching from and what time it is in your part of the world. We always enjoy seeing how far our stories travel and connecting with viewers from all around the globe. And now, let's begin today's story. The cruelest thing an alpha can abandon is not his mate. It is the future waiting in a child's eyes. Rain soaked my coat until it clung heavily to my shoulders, but I barely noticed the cold. My arms were wrapped tightly around my 3-year-old son, Finn, whose tiny fingers held onto my shirt as though letting go would cause the whole world to disappear. Just hours earlier, I still believed there was a place where we belonged. I believed love could survive misunderstandings, pride, and silence. I was wrong. The gates of the Blackridge Pack closed behind us with a final sound that echoed louder than thunder. I did not look back because I already knew what stood beyond those walls. The alpha I had once trusted had chosen his reputation over the family we could have built together. Adrian never shouted. He never threatened me. Somehow that made his decision hurt even more. He simply looked at me with distant eyes and said it would be better if I disappeared before my presence created more problems for the pack. Those words followed every step I took down the muddy road leading away from the only home I had known. Finn rested his head against my shoulder without asking why we were leaving. Children sometimes understand sadness better than adults. He only whispered one quiet question that nearly broke my heart. "Papa, are we going home?" I forced myself to smile despite the tears. Mixing with the rain. "We are going to find a new one." I had no idea where that home might be. My savings would barely last a week. The nearest town was almost 15 miles away, and the storm grew stronger with every passing minute. The forest surrounding the mountain road seemed endless, its tall pines swaying beneath powerful winds. As daylight slowly faded into gray evening, Finn began shivering inside the blanket wrapped around him. I searched desperately for shelter until I noticed a small abandoned watchtower standing beside the old road. It was worn by time, but it kept the rain away. I sat beside the cracked stone wall, holding Finn close while trying to warm his tiny hands. He soon fell asleep against my chest, trusting me completely even though I had no answers for tomorrow. That trust gave me strength I did not know I still possessed. Hours passed in silence except for the steady rhythm of falling rain. Then distant hoofbeats echoed through the forest. They were calm, measured, and unhurried. A black carriage appeared through the mist, accompanied by riders wearing silver cloaks marked with an unfamiliar crest shaped like a soaring wolf beneath a crescent moon. The procession slowed the moment it reached the old watchtower. One rider stepped forward before respectfully opening the carriage door. A tall alpha emerged, dressed in a dark coat that carried no unnecessary decorations despite the unmistakable authority surrounding him. His silver eyes calmly studied the ruined shelter before settling on the sleeping child in my arms. I instinctively stood between him and Finn, though exhaustion made my legs tremble. The stranger neither advanced nor questioned me. Instead, he quietly removed his own cloak and handed it to one of his attendants. "Your son is cold," he said in a calm voice. "Please wrap him in this." I stared at him in disbelief. Most powerful alphas I had met expected obedience before kindness. This man offered kindness before asking for anything at all. "Who are you?" I finally whispered. A faint smile crossed his face, almost hidden by the falling rain. "My name is Silas," he replied. "The world insists on calling me your alpha's greatest rival. Tonight, I would rather be remembered as the man who could not leave a father and his son alone in the storm." Morning arrived with a sky washed clean by the storm, yet Rowan woke expecting the kindness from the previous night to disappear like a pleasant dream. Instead, he found a warm blanket draped carefully over Finn, a small fire burning nearby, and the quiet sound of birds returning to the forest. Silas stood a short distance away, speaking softly with one of his attendants while giving Rowan enough space to decide what came next. No one pressured him. No one asked uncomfortable questions. That simple respect felt unfamiliar. Finn slowly opened his eyes and looked around with sleepy curiosity before noticing the fresh loaf of bread and warm milk waiting beside the fire. He looked at Rowan for permission first. Rowan nodded gently, and the little boy smiled for the first time in days. Watching that small smile reminded Rowan how quickly children responded to kindness. Silas approached only after Finn had finished eating. "The nearest town is nearly 20 miles from here," he said calmly. "There are few places where a parent traveling alone with a young child will find shelter this time of year. My estate is closer. You may stay until you decide your next step." Rowan hesitated. Every lesson life had taught him warned against trusting powerful alphas. Yet nothing about Silas matched those fears. He had offered warmth without demanding gratitude, safety without asking for loyalty, and privacy without suspicion. "Why would you help strangers?" Rowan asked honestly. Silas looked toward the forest instead of answering immediately. "Because there was a time when someone helped me without asking who I was," he finally replied. "Some debts are not repaid to the same person. They are repaid by showing the same kindness to someone else." The words settled quietly in Rowan's heart. They did not erase yesterday's pain, but they made tomorrow seem a little less frightening. By midday, the carriage reached Silvercrest Manor, a peaceful estate surrounded by rolling hills, orchards, and quiet lakes instead of towering walls. Workers greeted Silas with genuine smiles rather than fearful bows, and children from nearby cottages ran freely through the gardens, laughing as they chased colorful butterflies. It did not feel like the home of a feared rival alpha. It felt like a place where people could finally breathe. A housekeeper named Clara welcomed Rowan and Finn with gentle warmth before leading them to comfortable rooms overlooking the gardens. She never asked why they had arrived or how long they planned to stay. She simply said, "Everyone deserves a safe place to rest." That evening, Rowan found Finn sitting on the back steps beside Silas. The little boy held a wooden carving of a fox while Silas patiently showed him how different forest animals left different footprints in soft soil. Finn listened with complete attention, asking one innocent question after another. There was no awkwardness between them, only quiet curiosity. When Rowan called his son inside for supper, Finn looked back at Silas with bright eyes. "Thank you, sir," he said politely. Silas smiled. "You are welcome, Finn." As Rowan watched the exchange, he realized something unexpected. For the first time since leaving the Blackridge pack, his son had laughed without forcing it. Later that night, after Finn had fallen asleep, Rowan stood alone on the balcony beneath a sky filled with stars. He whispered a silent promise that no matter how uncertain the future became, he would protect the happiness slowly returning to his son's heart. Far beyond the peaceful estate, inside the ancient archives beneath Blackridge pack, an elderly keeper unlocked a forgotten stone chest. Resting inside was a weathered scroll marked with an unfamiliar silver crest and a single line written in fading ink. "The child who bears the ancient alpha mark will one day decide the future of every pack." The peaceful rhythm of life at Silvercrest Manor slowly became something Rowan had almost forgotten was possible. Each morning, sunlight spilled across the orchards, and Finn eagerly hurried outside before breakfast, convinced that every new day held another small adventure waiting just beyond the garden paths. Silas never tried to replace anyone in the little boy's life. Instead, he quietly became a steady presence, always nearby whenever Finn needed help tying a loose boot, reaching a high branch for fresh apples, or answering the endless questions that only curious children could invent. Rowan often watched from a distance, surprised by how naturally the two understood each other. One cool autumn afternoon, Silas invited Finn to accompany him to the eastern meadow, where several young horses were learning to trust new riders. Rather than placing the child on horseback immediately, Silas knelt beside him and explained that true strength always began with patience. "Before an animal follows your lead," he said with a gentle smile, "it must first believe it is safe beside you." Finn listened with complete attention before carefully extending his small hand toward a shy gray foal. Instead of pulling away, the young horse stepped closer and rested its nose against Finn's palm. Stable workers exchanged surprised glances. Even the oldest trainer quietly admitted he had never seen the cautious foal approach a stranger so willingly. Rowan felt an unexpected warmth spread through his chest. For the first time in years, he was watching his son grow without fear hanging over every ordinary moment. That evening, while helping Finn wash his hands before supper, Rowan noticed something unusual. Faint silver lines shimmered across the back of the little boy's wrist for only a heartbeat before disappearing completely. Rowan blinked, wondering if the fading sunlight had simply played a trick on his eyes. Finn looked up innocently. "Papa, why are you looking at my hand?" Rowan smiled softly and kissed his forehead. "I thought I saw a little sparkle." Finn giggled. Maybe the stars came early. Rowan laughed with him, but a quiet uneasiness lingered in his heart. Later that night, after Finn had fallen asleep, Rowan mentioned the strange light to Silas while they walked through the manor gardens beneath a sky filled with bright constellations. Silas listened carefully without interrupting. When Rowan finished, the alpha remained thoughtful for several moments before speaking. "There are stories older than every pack," he said. "Most people call them myths because they are easier to ignore that way. But sometimes legends survive because they are waiting for the right moment to be remembered." Rowan frowned. "Do you think it means Finn is in danger?" Silas answered without hesitation. "No. I think it means he may be more important than either of us understands. And until we know the truth, no one outside this estate should learn what you saw." Rowan nodded. He trusted the calm certainty in Silas's voice more than any promise he had ever received before. As they stood beneath the stars, a cool breeze stirred the orchard leaves, carrying with it the faint scent of ancient cedar. Far away, deep beneath the oldest sanctuary hidden within the northern mountains, a circular stone altar illuminated with soft silver light. Symbols untouched for centuries slowly awakened one after another, surrounding a single ancient emblem that matched the brief mark which had appeared on Finn's wrist. A quiet voice echoed through the empty chamber, gentle yet filled with timeless certainty. "The heir has been found. The path to the first sanctuary has opened once again." The following morning arrived with crisp mountain air and golden sunlight spilling across the hills surrounding Silvercrest Manor. Yet Rowan could not forget the mysterious silver light that had appeared on Finn's wrist. Although the mark had vanished as quickly as it had appeared, the memory lingered in his thoughts with every passing hour. Finn, however, remained blissfully unaware. He spent the morning helping the gardeners gather ripe apples, proudly carrying a small wooden basket that seemed almost too large for him. Every worker smiled when he passed, not because he was the child of an honored guest, but because his cheerful laughter somehow made the entire estate feel warmer. Rowan quietly realized something remarkable. During the months they had lived at Silvercrest, Finn had stopped waking from frightened dreams. He no longer asked whether they would have to leave again tomorrow. The little boy had finally begun believing that this place could truly become home. Later that afternoon, an unexpected visitor arrived. An elderly scholar wearing a long gray cloak stepped from a modest carriage bearing no royal crest. Silas personally greeted the man at the entrance before leading him into the manor's library. Curious but respectful, Rowan remained outside until Silas invited him to join the meeting. The library was filled with towering shelves containing books so old that many appeared untouched for generations. The elderly scholar introduced himself as Professor Alden, a historian who had spent his life studying the forgotten origins of the Alpha Packs. Without wasting a single moment, he carefully unfolded an ancient parchment across the oak table. Faded drawings of unfamiliar symbols covered its surface. Near the center was an illustration of a small silver mark that immediately caught Rowan's attention. It matched the brief pattern he had seen glowing on Finn's wrist. Rowan's heart skipped a beat. "What does it mean?" he asked quietly. Professor Alden adjusted his spectacles before answering. "For centuries, people believed this was only a legend. It is known as the ancient Alpha mark. Unlike ordinary pack symbols, it cannot be inherited through power or status. It appears only when someone destined to unite divided hearts is born." Rowan looked down at the parchment in stunned silence. Silas remained calm, studying the illustration without surprise. "Can it be dangerous?" he asked. The professor slowly nodded. "Only if the wrong people discover it. Throughout history, there have always been those who wished to control what they could not understand." Rowan instinctively thought of Blackridge Pack. Although Adrian had sent him away, there were others within the pack who valued influence above compassion. If rumors of Finn spread beyond Silvercrest, their peaceful life could disappear overnight. Silas gently closed the ancient parchment before meeting Rowan's anxious gaze. "No one outside this room will learn what Professor Alden has shown us," he said with quiet certainty. "Finn deserves the chance to grow as a child before carrying the weight of any legend." Rowan felt an overwhelming sense of relief. Once again, Silas had chosen protection instead of ambition. As evening settled over the manor, Finn ran through the gardens chasing glowing fireflies, completely unaware that history itself had quietly reached out to him. Watching his son laugh beneath the fading sunset, Rowan silently promised that no prophecy, no ancient secret, and no forgotten title would ever matter more than the simple happiness shining across Finn's face. Far away within the stone halls of Blackridge Pack, Adrian stood alone before the pack archives as an old messenger placed a weathered report into his hands. Across the first page, written in careful script, were the words that made the Alpha's expression slowly change. "The child believed to be lost may still be alive." Adrian read the weathered report again beneath the quiet light of the archive lamps, hoping the words would somehow change. They did not. "The child believed to be lost may still be alive." For several long moments, he stood in complete silence, surrounded by shelves filled with the history of generations before him. Memories he had tried to bury slowly returned. Rowan's hopeful smile on the day they first met. The quiet dreams they once shared about building a peaceful future. The painful afternoon when fear, pressure, and duty had outweighed his courage. He had convinced himself that sending Rowan away would protect the pack from growing political conflict, but now that decision no longer felt noble. It felt unbearably empty. Across the mountains, life at Silvercrest Manor continued with a gentle rhythm untouched by the turmoil unfolding elsewhere. Finn spent nearly every afternoon following Silas through the orchards, asking endless questions about trees, birds, rivers, and the stars that appeared each evening above the hills. Silas answered every question with remarkable patience, never dismissing the curiosity that filled the little boy's bright eyes. One afternoon they paused beside an old oak tree overlooking the lake. Finn carefully traced circles in the dirt with a small stick before looking up. "Sir Silas," he asked softly, "how do you know when someone is strong?" Silas smiled and sat beside him beneath the wide branches. "Many people think strength means never being afraid," he replied. "I think true strength means choosing kindness even when life has given you every reason to become bitter." Finn considered the answer carefully before nodding with complete sincerity. "Then Papa is the strongest person I know." Hidden several yards away among the flowering hedges, Rowan had unintentionally overheard the conversation. His eyes filled with quiet emotion. During the darkest days after leaving Blackridge, he had worried that his son would remember only loss. Instead, Finn had learned compassion. In that moment, Rowan understood that Silvercrest had given his child something far greater than safety. It had given him examples worth growing toward. That evening, Professor Alden requested another private meeting with Rowan and Silas inside the library. This time he carried a narrow wooden case sealed with faded silver wax. Carefully opening it, he revealed a polished crystal disc engraved with ancient symbols. As the disc rested upon the table, a faint silver glow appeared across its surface. "This artifact was created centuries ago," Alden explained. "It responds only to the presence of the ancient alpha mark." Rowan exchanged a concerned glance with Silas. "Should Finn see this?" he asked. Alden slowly shook his head. "Not yet. Children should never carry the weight of history before they have the chance to enjoy childhood." Silas quietly agreed. "Then we protect both the child and the secret." The crystal suddenly brightened, projecting a faint image above the table. Instead of maps or forgotten cities, it displayed 3 glowing stars connected by a single silver line. Beneath them appeared one sentence written in ancient script before slowly translating itself into clear modern words. "The future of every pack will be decided by the family the heir chooses, not the bloodline he inherits." Silence filled the room. Rowan instinctively thought of Adrian, then looked toward Silas standing calmly beside him. For the first time, he realized the ancient prophecy was not asking who Finn's father was. It was asking who would teach him what kind of man he would become. Far away, Adrian quietly folded the report and looked toward the northern horizon. Without speaking to anyone, he made a single decision that would change every life connected to the forgotten prophecy. He ordered his horse prepared before sunrise and began the journey towards Silvercrest Manor. The journey to the first sanctuary began before dawn beneath a sky still covered with fading stars. Professor Alden explained that the ancient crystal had revealed only part of the truth. The sanctuary hidden beyond the northern mountains was not simply a forgotten place. It was a living archive created by the first Alpha leaders, where wisdom, promises, and history had been preserved long after kingdoms disappeared. If the ancient Alpha mark had truly awakened within Finn, the sanctuary itself might reveal why. Rowan hesitated at first. Every instinct told him to keep his son hidden from the world. Yet Silas calmly reminded him that running from the truth had never protected anyone forever. "We are not traveling to chase a prophecy," Silas said as they prepared their horses. "We are traveling so Finn can grow up without fear of what he does not understand." Those words settled Rowan's heart. By sunrise, the small group had left Silvercrest Manor behind, following an old mountain trail that appeared on no modern map. Finn rode happily in front of Silas, fascinated by every waterfall, soaring eagle, and field of wildflowers they passed. He asked endless questions about the mountains, and Silas answered each one with the same quiet patience that had become so familiar. Rowan watched them from a short distance away. He realized something that surprised him. Finn no longer looked toward strangers hoping to find the father he had lost. Instead, he naturally turned toward the person who had consistently been there every single day. Love, Rowan thought, was quietly built through ordinary moments repeated over time. Late that afternoon, the travelers reached a narrow stone bridge stretching across a deep valley filled with drifting clouds. Ancient pillars stood at each end, carved with symbols worn smooth by centuries of wind and rain. Professor Alden carefully brushed away patches of moss before reading the faded inscription aloud. "Only those who protect before they possess may continue." The words echoed gently across the valley. Nothing happened at first. Then Finn looked up at Silas with innocent curiosity. "What does it mean to protect before you possess?" Silas smiled warmly. "It means that caring for someone is never about owning them. It is about helping them become who they are meant to be, even if they one day choose a different path." The moment those words left his lips, the ancient bridge shimmered with soft silver light. Hidden runes awakened one after another beneath their feet, illuminating the weathered stones. Professor Alden stared in astonishment. "The bridge accepted the answer," he whispered. "No one has crossed this path in hundreds of years." As they continued forward, Rowan noticed the atmosphere becoming strangely peaceful. The mountain winds grew warm instead of cold, and distant bells seemed to ring without any visible source. At the far end of the bridge stood a pair of towering white gates covered with flowering vines that somehow remained green despite countless winters. Before anyone could approach, Finn quietly stepped forward on his own. The faint silver mark appeared once more upon his wrist, brighter than ever before. The enormous gates slowly opened without a single hand touching them, revealing a breathtaking valley hidden beyond the mountains, where crystal rivers, ancient trees, and graceful stone halls rested beneath golden sunlight untouched by time. As everyone stood in silent wonder, a calm voice echoed across the sanctuary with gentle warmth. "Welcome, young heir. We have waited for your family longer than history can remember." The hidden valley welcomed them with a peaceful silence unlike anything Rowan had ever experienced. Gentle streams wound through fields of white flowers, crystal bridges stretched across clear water, and ancient trees formed graceful arches above quiet stone paths. Nothing about the sanctuary suggested power through fear. Instead, every corner reflected harmony, as though generations had carefully protected not only its walls but the values upon which it had been built. Finn gazed around with wide eyes, his excitement impossible to hide. He pointed toward bright blue birds, gliding between flowering branches before running a few careful steps ahead, only stopping when Rowan gently reminded him to stay close. The little boy quickly returned, slipping his small hand into Rowan's before looking towards Silas with an eager smile. "Can we explore together?" he asked. Silas nodded warmly. Together is always the safest way. As they continued deeper into the sanctuary, they reached a circular courtyard where 12 marble pillars surrounded a tranquil pool reflecting the morning sky. At its center stood an ancient tree with silver leaves that shimmered whenever the breeze passed through its branches. Professor Alden quietly approached the pool, studying inscriptions carved into the surrounding stone. "This is the Heart Court," he said with unmistakable awe. "According to the oldest records, every future leader came here before accepting responsibility for others." Rowan carefully observed the carvings. Instead of victories or battles, each panel depicted simple acts of compassion. One leader helped an elderly traveler cross a river. Another comforted a frightened child during a storm. A third shared food with strangers during a harsh winter. Rowan looked puzzled. "There are no stories of conquest." Professor Alden smiled. "Because this sanctuary measured greatness differently." Before anyone could continue, the water within the pool began to glow with soft silver light. Gentle ripples spread across its surface until a calm voice echoed through the courtyard. "The ancient alpha mark does not choose the strongest. It chooses the one whose future will inspire others to choose kindness over fear." The words settled into complete silence. Finn slowly stepped closer to the water, still holding Rowan's hand. His silver mark appeared once again, brighter than before, yet the little boy showed no fear. Instead, he looked curiously into the glowing reflection. The water did not show his own face. It revealed 3 figures walking side by side beneath the same sky. One was a child. The other 2 were adults standing beside him with equal warmth. Neither walked ahead. Neither walked behind. They moved together as one family. Rowan felt his breath catch. Silas quietly watched the vision without speaking, allowing Rowan the space to understand its meaning on his own. After several moments, Rowan finally turned toward him. "Why have you never asked anything from us?" he whispered. Silas answered with the same quiet honesty that had guided every choice since the night they met. "Because love that expects payment is only another form of possession. I wanted you and Finn to choose your own future, never to feel indebted to me." Rowan lowered his eyes as emotion quietly filled his heart. In that single moment, he realized the difference between someone who wanted to keep a family and someone who wanted a family to feel safe enough to stay. As the vision faded, a gentle breeze carried silver leaves across the courtyard. One leaf landed softly in Finn's open hand before dissolving into tiny points of light. At the far edge of the sanctuary, an elderly guardian emerged from a stone archway and respectfully bowed toward the child. "The council has awakened," he announced. "They have waited centuries to meet the family chosen by the ancient alpha mark." The council chamber rested beneath the oldest hill in the sanctuary, its domed ceiling reflecting countless tiny lights that resembled a peaceful night sky. Rowan walked beside Finn while Silas remained close enough to offer reassurance without ever taking away the family's freedom to choose their own path. The elderly guardian guided them through a circle of towering stone columns carved with the names of leaders who had once protected every pack through wisdom rather than force. At the center of the chamber stood 12 empty seats surrounding a crystal table that glowed with a gentle silver light. One by one, translucent figures appeared above the seats, not as frightening spirits, but as peaceful memories preserved through generations. Their expressions carried warmth instead of judgment. Finn looked at them with quiet curiosity. "Are they real?" he whispered. The guardian smiled kindly. "They're the voices of those who came before us. They cannot command the future. They can only share what they learned." The silver light surrounding the table slowly gathered around Finn's wrist, causing the ancient alpha mark to appear once again. This time, however, the symbol remained calm and steady, pulsing like a quiet heartbeat. A gentle voice echoed throughout the chamber. "Young heir, tell us what makes a family." Rowan instinctively worried that the question was too difficult for a child, but before he could speak, Finn answered with complete sincerity. "A family is the people who stay when you are scared." Silence filled the chamber for a brief moment before the crystal table shimmered with brilliant light. The 12 figures smiled together, and the guardian quietly lowered his head in respect. "No lesson could be wiser," he said softly. Another voice followed. "Then tell us, who has stayed beside you?" Finn looked first toward Rowan without hesitation. "My papa always stays." He then turned toward Silas and smiled with the same innocent certainty. "Sir Silas stays too." The chamber grew brighter, and delicate patterns of silver light spread across the floor like flowing water. Rowan felt unexpected tears gathering in his eyes. He had spent so much time fearing the future that he had almost forgotten how honestly children saw the world. They remembered actions, not titles. They trusted consistency, not promises. The eldest figure gently raised one hand, and an ancient mural along the chamber wall slowly awakened. It showed generations of children standing beside the adults who had chosen to guide them with patience and compassion. Beneath the image, a single sentence appeared in glowing letters. The future belongs to those who teach love before power. Professor Alden quietly repeated the words, recognizing them from fragments of forgotten manuscripts he had studied for decades. This, he whispered, was the true foundation of every great pack. At that very moment, hurried footsteps echoed from the sanctuary entrance. A young messenger respectfully bowed before the guardian before delivering a sealed letter. The guardian read it silently, then looked toward Rowan and Silas with calm seriousness. "A traveler has arrived at the outer gate," he announced. "He refused an escort and requested no special treatment. He carries the crest of Blackridge Pack." Rowan's heart tightened immediately, already knowing who had finally reached the sanctuary. Before anyone else could react, Finn gently reached for Rowan's hand with one hand and Silas's hand with the other, smiling as naturally as if there had never been any distance between them. Outside the sanctuary gates, Adrian stood quietly beneath the evening sky, carrying no weapons, no royal escort, and no demands. Only the hope that he might finally earn the chance to face the family he had once let walk away. The sanctuary gates opened quietly as the evening sunlight painted the valley in shades of gold and silver. Adrian stepped forward alone, leaving his horse behind without hesitation. There were no soldiers following him, no banners announcing his rank, and no expectation that his title would earn him forgiveness. He simply stood before Rowan with the humility of someone who had finally understood the cost of his own choices. For several long moments, neither of them spoke. The silence carried years of memories that words alone could never fully explain. Rowan looked into Adrian's familiar eyes and realized they no longer held the certainty of a proud pack alpha. Instead, they reflected regret, responsibility, and a sincere desire to face the consequences of the past. Adrian slowly lowered his head. "I came here because I finally learned the truth," he said quietly. "Not only about Finn, but about myself. I believed I was protecting everyone by letting you go. Instead, I abandoned the people who trusted me most." Rowan listened without interrupting. The pain from that rainy day had not disappeared, but it no longer controlled his heart. Months spent at Silvercrest had taught him that healing did not mean forgetting. It meant allowing the future to become greater than the past. Adrian carefully looked toward Finn, who remained beside Rowan while still holding Silas's hand. The little boy watched him with innocent curiosity rather than recognition. Adrian's voice softened. "I know I cannot ask to become part of his life today. Trust cannot be rebuilt by words. It must be earned through time." Silas remained respectfully silent, allowing the conversation to unfold without interference. He neither claimed Rowan nor defended his own place. His calm confidence came from knowing that genuine love never needed to compete. Before Rowan could answer, the crystal floor of the council chamber shimmered with gentle light once more. The 12 ancient figures appeared above the circular table, their peaceful expressions unchanged. One elder spoke with quiet warmth. "The ancient Alpha Mark has never chosen perfection. It has always chosen those willing to grow." Another voice followed. "The child will learn not from the mistakes adults have made, but from how they choose to change after making them." Rowan slowly looked toward Silas. Throughout every difficult season, Silas had never asked him to forget Adrian, never demanded gratitude, and never treated kindness as a transaction. He had simply remained present every single day. Rowan finally understood that love built through patience created the strongest foundation of all. Finn gently released Rowan's hand before walking toward Adrian. The little boy stopped several feet away and smiled politely. "Mister, Papa says good people can make mistakes if they learn to be kinder afterward." Adrian's eyes filled with quiet emotion. He knelt so they were at the same height. "Your papa is very wise." Finn nodded thoughtfully before taking a few small steps backward. Without hesitation, he returned to Rowan and slipped one hand into Rowan's while placing the other into Silas's. Looking up with complete certainty, He smiled. This is my home. No one argued with the child because no one needed to. The answer had come from the person whose future mattered most. Adrian slowly stood, accepting the truth with dignity rather than resentment. He offered Rowan a grateful nod before turning toward Silas. Thank you, he said sincerely. You protected the family I failed to protect. Silas answered with quiet respect. The future is always stronger when people choose responsibility over pride. As the sun disappeared beyond the mountains, the sanctuary bells rang gently across the valley. White blossoms drifted through the evening air while the ancient alpha mark glowed softly one final time before settling into peaceful silence. High above the sanctuary, a constellation shaped like a great silver wolf and a soaring eagle slowly appeared together among the stars, reminding every generation that true family is not defined only by blood or destiny, but by the people who choose, day after day, to stay, to protect, and to love.